Okay, yes, I am finally doing my spoiler talk for Aquaman. I've been putting this off for the past couple days. I hope everyone had a good Christmas, and I hope you all got some awesome gifts. I'm using a new microphone. It's a pretty good one. So now that Aquaman's been out for a week, let's talk about some spoilers. That is a warning. If you have not seen it yet, I recommend going to see it and at least having a good time. What can I say? This movie brought me back to being a kid again, and I loved it for that. Some people only think this movie's okay. Some people still just don't think DC's doing a good job. But what can I say, man? I'm an optimist, and I like being nice to movies. I mean, it doesn't always happen, but I'm not going to apologize for liking a movie. But anyways, let's get into some spoilers. The first thing I want to talk about is Black Manta, actually. Because for the longest time, I'm talking like years of my life, I was under the impression that Black Manta was an Atlantean. I mean, it made sense to me, you know, in the trailer he's going toe-to-toe with Aquaman, putting up a pretty good fight, and I never read the comics so I didn't know otherwise, so I just thought that Black Manta was another Atlantean. But it turns out he's not. He's just a human being. That first scene where Aquaman goes up to the submarine and, you know, starts beating the crap out of all those guys was pretty funny. Because these guys are just not holding a candle to this dude. Like, he picks that one guy up and just runs through the door. And then the other guy's just hiding behind the door. He's like, it was cracking me up. But then you see the guy who's going to be Black Manta, his father is also on that ship with them, the submarine rather. Arthur Curry gets to them and he chants. That's another thing I like about him, actually. He does these like Hawaiian chants, or Samoan or Pacific Islander, whatever he is. Jason Momoa brought a little bit of himself into that character, because you see that haka dance he did at the premiere? It's on YouTube, just look it up. Aquaman premiere haka dance. It's really cool. So he just throws that spear thing right into his father's shoulder. You see Black Manta go like, "Dad!" And then Aquaman walks up to his father. He's like, "That's your kid? Shame on you." I was like, ooh. That's dark. He's no saint. He's a douche. I just thought that scene was remarkably effective because the father gets trapped under that torpedo thing, whatever, and he pulls out the grenade and he says to his son, "I will die so you can go free and kill that son of a bitch." And he flips a switch and Black Manta's like, "Damn you!" That was a really effective scene. It got to me right in the beginning of the movie. That brought me over to Black Manta's side. I'm like, yeah, Black Manta is a great villain. He's kind of sympathetic in a way because Aquaman pulled a dick move, so I can see why Black Manta would blame Aquaman for the death of his father. Because Aquaman could have saved him, he just chose not to. I just love that scene so much. So later when Arthur is approached by Mera, which, that was a great reveal from Mera. She was so hot. She comes like out of the water. It reminded me of Ursula Andress in Dr. No, the first James Bond movie. Like this super hot girl coming out of the water, and there's that shot of her just in all of her glory. I'm like, good stuff, I'm just saying. She's like, "You have to come reclaim the throne so you can overthrow your brother because he's gonna declare war on the surface world." And of course Aquaman's like, "No." "Oh, holy shit, a tidal wave that almost killed my father? Yeah, okay, I'll go." That was kind of convenient if you ask me. So they go to Atlantis where they learn from Volko that they had to get this trident that was owned by the very first king of Atlantis, King Atlan. And there was a time where Atlantis just ruled over the world, which made me scratch my head. I'm like, doesn't that mesh with the lore we learned in Wonder Woman? Bear in mind, it's the same universe. In Wonder Woman, we learned that, you know, mankind was created by the gods and, you know, the whole thing with Ares happened. But then there was a time where Atlanteans ruled over the world. Maybe it was at a different time, but, you know, there's different backstories. This is where the DC universe really just kind of starts to lose me, just in general. Like, yeah, these characters are from different worlds, but the backstories of those worlds, they lead to confusion with me. But then again, Justice League said there were Atlanteans and Amazons and human beings. They were all on Earth in the past, I guess. I'm sure if I actually read the comics, I would know more and I wouldn't be confused. In any case, I was right. Atlantis was an above water kingdom at first, like I said in my video about the second trailer, and they were a really advanced race, so their advancements in technology ultimately led to them being sunk underwater. It led to their wet doom. So after we learn about what we have to do, we have to go to the Sahara Desert or whatever to get this trident, or to find out where to get the trident. Then Arthur gets captured by King Orm. And when they fight, I thought it was actually a pretty badass fight, because it ultimately had to do with the tridents. Because Aquaman has the same trident he had in Justice League, that of his mother's, and Orm has that of his father's. And when Orm just smashes that trident in half, I was like, oh shit, is that defeat? That's where it kind of differed from Black Panther, where like defeat in that movie was like apparent death. And in this movie is just the trident broke. But then King Orm is about to strike him again, and then Mera comes out of nowhere and pulls a core from Tron Legacy. She does like the exact same thing. She rescues Sam from the Disc Wars before he can get derezzed by Rinsler, completed with the get in. So they escape and they go to this desert kingdom. But I'm gonna go back to Black Manta again because I just like talking about him. Turns out he's kind of in cahoots with King Orm. I wonder like what led him to actually meet King Orm. Because again, this is just a human being. As far as most human beings on the planet know, Atlantis is still a myth. So what led to this partnership between Black Manta and King Orm? I don't know, maybe I missed it. Maybe the movie did leave that out. But these Atlanteans, they give Black Manta this armor that is going to be the Black Manta armor. But then he tinkers with it. He kind of makes it his own, which I think is really cool. He also made up the name because his grandfather was known as Manta back in World War II, I think it was. So when it gets to that fight scene in Italy, which again, was just an awesome fight scene, he's like,
"Call me Black Manta."
I was like, yeah, that is completely awesome. It didn't bother me as much that his globe head was a little too big, because he had a freaking jetpack and eye lasers. Like, dude, arm blades made of Atlantean steel. He actually goes toe-to-toe with Arthur, like I said. Even gets a good stab in him. Most badass part of the fight, though, was the wine daggers. Mara finds herself in this wine cellar, and she's like, oh, those bottles have liquid in them. She's like, hones her energy, her eyes start glowing. Then she just, God, these, like, daggers made out of wine come out, and they get these Atlantean soldiers. I'm like, alright, awesome. Black Manta pretty much just gets destroyed. He just goes tumbling down this cliff. It's like, doosh, 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 and his helmet cracks. His armor gets all fucked up, but I know he's not dead because we haven't seen enough of him yet. So we'll definitely get to see more of him. And then after that fight, you have this heartfelt scene on the boat with Arthur and Mara. And I said in my review that their chemistry was really good up until a point, and then it starts getting a little too unbelievable. That's pretty much my spoiler-covered way of saying I didn't buy the romance in this movie. And honestly, I didn't think I would buy the romance. I get that, you know, this has happened a million movies before, like, oh, we don't get along at first, and there's banter back and forth, and then all of a sudden, you know, they become friends. Like, that's been in a million Disney animated movies. But from bantering back and forth to being lovers, that takes a little more effort to pull off, and I don't feel like this movie did that. I get that in the comics, Aquaman and Mara end up getting married, you know, she becomes Queen Mara, but I feel like that's the reason they had a romance in this movie, because that's how it is in the comics. I didn't feel it, like, naturally grow. That's just me, though. But they get to the trench, which is what those anglerfish xenomorph hybrids were. It's another sea kingdom, I guess. The 7 sea kingdoms, that's what Unite the Seven meant. Now we finally know. There's, like, Atlantis, and the Brine Kingdom, and the Fishermen, and the Desert Kingdom, the Trench Kingdom, Dolph Lundgren's Kingdom, and the Hidden Kingdom. And when they get to this Hidden Kingdom, it's the center of the earth, which is great because Arthur was quoting Jules Verne at the beginning of this movie, and upon seeing this hidden kingdom, it said Earth's core. I was like, there are dinosaurs running around. I was like, oh, it's totally Journey to the Center of the Earth, which yes, is a movie, but it's based off a book by Jules Verne. I love how they made that connection. And when they get there, they discover that, surprise, Queen Atlanna is alive, and she's been marooned there for like 20 years. I usually don't like it when movies make that decision, like in Tomb Raider, where it's like, surprise, her dad's alive, and he's been marooned on this island for a long time. I'm like, why couldn't they just have remained dead? Probably would have meant a little more to the main character, or at least it would give them something to avenge. But yeah, Queen Atlanna is indeed alive. She's like, yeah, the Trident is here, but it's guarded by the Karathan, which is pretty much the Kraken, I guess, of DC. This giant sea monster, which is awesome. When Arthur goes down there and this thing confronts him, this thing is voiced by Julie Andrews, by the way, which is also awesome. She's like,
You are not worthy to take this trident.
but he can understand her, so she's like, and so he does. He takes the trident from King Atlan's corpse in a pretty obvious King Arthur parallel, which is great. I also like that this movie takes inspiration from the King Arthur stories, you know, because it's like the Sword and the Stone, where he takes it and now he wields this new power. He now commands all the forces of the sea, and he gets King Atlan's old armor. So when it gets to that final battle at the end of the movie, that's where my inner kid started squealing with glee, because this battle is certainly on par with Lord of the Rings. It just is, okay? There's just as much CG. Like King Orm's army, they're riding these sharks, and, you know, King Nereus' army are riding these sea dragons, and Ocean Master, as he's now being called, is about to kill the leader of the Brine Kingdom, and all of a sudden you see this giant Karathan just come out from the lava floor, just roars, and then you see Aquaman on top. He's like, ah! I was like, that is the most badass thing ever. You've got to admit, even if you thought this movie was just okay, that moment was really cool. And then using the trident, he just calls all of these sea creatures. You see this just army of, you know, sharks and whales and dolphins and squids and all sorts of other things. Best part of that, though, is when I saw Mara riding the killer whale. That made me so happy, because killer whales are my favorite animal. They always have been, and they always will be. So when I saw Mara riding on one, I was like, ah! Free Willy. That, like, touched my heart. It was awesome. I was a kid again. I was a little kid at SeaWorld watching a Shamu show or something. I don't know, I just liked it, okay? The one thing I didn't like about the big battle was, again, the romance aspect, when Mara's like, make him fight in your element, and then she just plants one on him. She made the move this time. It felt like it came out of nowhere. I mean, of course, if I were Arthur, I would not be complaining. I'm just saying, though. And it ends with this fight between Aquaman and Ocean Master, where again, they're fighting with these tridents, and, you know, Aquaman pulls off that hula dancer thing that he was learning as a kid with Volko. He does that chant, and it blows Ocean Master back, and then this is great. He like leaps over him and he goes, Gah! And it breaks Ocean Master's trident. Then superhero lands on the ground. That was completely badass. And so yes, Aquaman won the fight, but he refused to kill Ocean Master, which I loved actually. I said in one of my videos about the trailers, I don't remember which one, that if Ocean Master lives, we might actually have a good villain later down the line, or at least a good character, because now he's gonna get locked up, and maybe in an Aquaman sequel, they'll have to work together to fight a greater evil. You know, like Loki in Thor the Dark World. That's the parallel I'm making, but you see the similarities, right? It's totally true though, but Orm's gonna want his revenge. I'm looking forward to seeing where that story goes. And Arthur, Aquaman, is now crowned as the King of Atlantis. King Arthur, baby! In the next movie, if there is a next movie, I'm gonna want to see his relationship with Mara grow a little more. I mean, yeah, they shared a kiss, and even after he's crowned, he's like, this is gonna be fun! Mwah! You know, just pecks her on the head. She probably still thought that was annoying. And then there's the mid-credits scene. It shows Black Manta. He is indeed still alive. He's rescued by that scientist who was played by Randall Park from Ant-Man and the Wasp. Wasp. You know, he was that government agent. Now, at a couple points in this movie, you've been seeing news reports of him as Stephen Shin, the scientist who was obsessed with Atlantis. He's like, I know it's real, we have proof. So he runs into Black Manta. He's like, you have Atlantean technology. Can you show me where you got it from? Black Manta's like, yes, but lead me to Aquaman first. So okay, they're gonna have a little partnership, I guess. I do want Black Manta to have more prominence in the next movie. Again, if there even is a next movie, which I want there to be. At this point, I'm not really sure where the DC Extended Universe is going. We have a few more movies coming up, you know, Shazam's coming out in a few months. But then in 2020, we have like Birds of Prey, Cyborg, Wonder Woman 1984, and Green Lantern Corps. That's like 4 movies. I'm sure the release dates will be changed before then, though. But we don't really know where it's going right now. We don't know if there's gonna be another Justice League movie, because you know, there are those rumors that Henry Cavill and Ben Affleck have hung up their capes. And I'm like, you can't have another Justice League movie without Batman and Superman. Admit it, it's not the Justice League without them. Maybe you can get different actors, but that would be a little weird. No Justice League sequel has been announced yet. Maybe they're taking their time, I don't know. But I would certainly like an Aquaman sequel to be announced soon, because I want to see more. In the end, Aquaman was the movie that brought me back to feeling like a kid. Because again, I grew up loving ocean life. I said, in my mind, this movie has the potential to be something really special. And this movie certainly was that for me. I just love the world this movie sets up. Yes, it is mostly eye candy, but I love the story too. The characters were very deep. Just this movie was completely solid for me. Because it was hardly a superhero movie. It was about a guy fulfilling his destiny of being king. He doesn't even get his superhero armor until the end, so there that is. I've seen this movie a couple times. I'd be down to watch it many more times. So what was the most badass moment in this movie for you? Whatever it is, go ahead and leave a comment. And don't forget to subscribe.